Imagine no jets, ships, defense, or space program. Ronald Stein, engineer, author, founder at PTS Advance. Good afternoon, Ronald. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Armando, glad to be back aboard.
Great. This is a retake, a video retake. With the original one, we had some problems, technical problems, so we are redoing today. Ronald, please. You mentioned in an article you published last week, uh, 50,000 jets, 50,000 merchant ships, military and space programs worldwide. What happens today without fossil fuels?
Well, let's get down to specifics. There are three fossil fuels. There's coal, natural gas, and crude oil. And we get a lot of power from coal. We get a lot of power from natural gas. But those can't happen without crude oil. Crude oil, Armando, is the basis of everything. Because crude oil is, in the last 200 years, the population of the world has gone from 1 billion to 8 billion. In those 200 years, we've learned how to, with our ingenuity, been able to manufacture crude oil, because crude oil by itself is useless. It's just black tar. It's just a mess. But if you can manufacture it, i.e., through refineries, we can get oil derivatives that makes all the products in our lives that we didn't have a couple hundred years ago. It basically provides all the fuels to power the jets, the ships, the space program, the cars and trucks. They're all made with the products that are made from oil derivatives. So it's really one fossil fuel, crude oil. Crude oil is the basis of our materialistic society. And if you want to get rid of crude oil, you're going to get rid of the space program. You're going to get rid of hospitals. You're going to get rid of, the communications. This conversation comes to an end because there's no electronics involved. It's a materialistic society. It's the basis of crude oil. And like I say, you can't mine for coal without the machinery to do that. And the machinery is made with the oil derivatives come out of crude oil. And you can't have a natural gas power plant without all that equipment. And that equipment is made with the same oil derivatives that are manufactured out of crude oil. So crude oil that's the target that society wants to eliminate. And I don't know why they want to eliminate it, because there's no backup plan. Because you eliminate crude oil and you start turning in your iPhones, or you're not going to be able to get a new one, won't be able to make one. And, the iPads go away, computers go away. I mean, take a look around. What is not made with crude oil?
Right.
So that's where it's at. And we've come to be used to the fact we got 50,000 jets moving, food and medication around the world. We got 50,000 jets, coming and going, commercial jets, private jets, merchant ships. I mean, it's just amazing. And this stuff didn't exist really before 1900s. It's not that far back. And that's really the basis. And, when I see someone walking with a sign, get rid of fossil fuels, what I see is they want to get rid of crude oil. And I asked the question, why do you want to get rid of crude oil? You get rid of crude oil, as we mentioned, you're going to shut down the space program. You're going to ground all the planes. You're going to stop all the ships. You can't make the ship. You got to make the ship before you can move the ship. And, you got to make the ship and then, provide the fuel for the ship. So, you can't make wind turbines. All the parts are made from crude oil. You can't make solar panels. I mean, everything. It's really, we're dependent on, not on oil, but we're dependent on the products that we've learned to get out of it. And that's really, I guess, a simplistic explanation of the movement that they want to get rid of fossil fuels. They really don't want to get rid of fossil fuels. when they talk about getting rid of fossil fuels, they're talking about, coal-fired power plants and natural gas power plants. They're trying to supplement them or change them to wind and solar. But wind, solar, coal, natural gas, whatever the power plant is, all the parts are made with crude oil. And so you really got to get down to what's the one item that's going to change. And you can't have wind and solar without crude oil, but they want to get rid of crude oil. Well, if you can't have your cake and eat it too.
That's right. Let me share. Let me share the graphic. Let me put here from Lawrence Laboratory. It's very interesting because you are saying that the green bar in the bottom of the chart is petroleum, oil, crude oil, and
Right.
goes 24% of this amount to transportation, but a very strong part to industrial. As natural gas in blue in the middle goes to industrial too. So the other ones are solar, nuclear, hydro, wind. All of them go to electricity. So cannot go to industrial or directly to transportation. It's something that we are talking about now.
Yes. Livermore, they do great work. And you're right. Wind turbines, solar panels, they can only do one thing: generate electricity. They can manufacture no products for our materialistic society. They could charge your iPhone, they could charge or make the defibrillator work, but they can't make the iPhone. They can't make the defibrillator. If you want to make the product, that's coming out of the crude oil. So that's why whenever you see these charts from Livermore and anywhere else, the reason you don't see a big impact of wind and solar on our quote energy usage is they only do one thing. They just generate electricity, and it's intermittent at best. And if you have if you're on the operating table, I would like to have consistent electricity, for the doctor. I don't want if the wind stops blowing, I don't want him to stop operating. And yeah, so it's weather dependent, but it's only for electricity. It can manufacture nothing. And when you get down to the basics, you can't even have a wind turbine, and you can't even have a solar panel without crude oil to make the components to make the wind turbines and solar panels. So it's that's the one thing that if we want to replace crude oil, we got to do a lot of work to find how to replace it.
Other place, it's not easy. Yeah, yeah. Let me share another thing with you, Ronald, please. It's from Energy Information Administration. From a barrel of petroleum, oil, crude oil, 66% go to transportation, 27 to industrial. We are talking about 27% going to industrial that can manufacture products you mentioned. Is it correct?
Well, any manufacturing facility has equipment, be it conveyors or forklifts. If you go back to before we had oil, when people were born, they very seldom lived beyond 40 years of age because they had no products to keep them alive, no medications, and didn't have access to a lot of food varieties, and they very seldom traveled 100 miles from where they were born. But now that we've got all these fuels for cars and trucks and ships, and it's just amazing. We have flexibility, and now people are traveling everywhere. And every time I'm on the California freeways, doesn't matter what time you're on the freeway, it's always crowded. 5 in the morning. Where are these people going? Because they want to go somewhere. So yeah, obviously a lot of the fuel is used for transportation to meet the demands of people's need for mobility. If they're going to the airport, and then from the airport they're going to Africa, whatever. But there's a lot for transportation, and the industrial usage is right behind it because before oil there was no industry. Go back to the 1800s, there was no manufacturing. You basically had man was pretty much competing with the animal kingdom, and you could basically have farms and grow with the limited products you have. But if you want the combines today are made with fossil fuel derivatives. So that's the secret sauce. And like I say, I'd love to be able to get rid of it if they want to get rid of it because they don't like a refinery because it looks ugly. But you know, I spent a lot of my time in the oil industry, basically, designing and building refineries around the world. And there's so much money being spent on emission controls, not only on industrial facilities to keep their emissions down, but the automobiles.
Ronald, the UK Prime Minister made a new speech 7 or 10 days ago, changed targets for UK, times for fossil fuel energies, and net zero plan. Do you believe that the US will do the same? Would do the same?
I think the UK and the US really have to focus on, as we mentioned, you want to get rid of what? Fossil fuels? Well, you can't get rid of all three. You have to pick one. If you want to get rid of crude oil, let's target that. Because if you get rid of crude oil, you've already eliminated the other two. Because
Coal
you can't.
and natural gas.
Right, because you can't make the mining equipment. You can't, move the coal without the materialistic society we have to move things. So it's really, they really got to focus on one item. Does the UK or Biden wants to get rid of fossil fuels. Does he really want to get rid of crude oil? Because that's the basis of everything. Because, if says he wants to get rid of crude oil, it's just like the people marching in New York, get rid of fossil fuel. What I see, Armando, when they're pulling those signs, let's get rid of the space program. Let's close all the hospitals. The hospitals didn't exist 200 years ago before we started manufacturing crude oil. Crude oil allowed us to have coal-fired power plants. Crude oil allowed us to have natural gas power plants. And crude oil allowed us to make solar panels and to make wind turbines. So all four of the electrical generating systems we have, coal, natural gas, wind, and solar, are all based on one item, crude oil. So, that's what they got to focus on. Can they live without crude oil? And, my answer is no.
No. And do you see that the independent country called California will do the same?
Very independent. Well, California, we're going to do anything. Newsom is oblivious to the world. We have, it's interesting because California, I think we talked about this before. I think it was in 1995. We were 95% independent of foreign oil. We imported 5% of the demands of the state in 1995. And all the governors have since reduced oil production. And today we are 60% dependent on fossil fuels. We're the fourth largest economy in the world, and we're 60% dependent on Russia and OPEC for oil, and it just defies logic. And when you take a look at even electricity, we're basically shutting down, wind, shutting down coal and natural gas and nuclear. California imports more electricity than any other state in the country. And again, we're the fourth largest economy in the world. And, where does it end? It's crazy. So we're setting the tone for the rest of the country, and that's not a very good tone to listen to.
Yeah, that's right. In your article, you mentioned something related to government programs that go bankrupt. You mentioned bad examples as USPS, Social Security, and a good example as Walmart. What does it mean exactly?
Well, yeah, we've got a lot of government programs. We got the United Parcel Service, Social Security, Fannie Mae, Medicare, Freddie Mac, the U.S. Department of Energy. And these have all been around for years and years and years. And they're all broken. But, being in energy, I focus on one of them. The U.S. Department of Energy, it was established 46 years ago. And it was established in 1977 to lessen our dependency on foreign oil. Today, 46 years later, the Department of Energy has 16,000 employees. That's amazing. And has an annual budget of $31 billion.
Wow.
And today, 46 later, after they were formed, we're now importing more oil than we did when they were formed to stop it. So, I
For
mean,
frustration.
and you take a look at Walmart, it's a private industry. And yeah, they've got, stores everywhere. And yeah, I think I was insinuating that, they've got, over 2 million employees and they got 10,000 stores. I'm saying, have Walmart run the government. Someone's got to make this thing run efficiently, and Walmart can do it. So maybe it's time to bring private industry and take over the government. And so that was, like I say, I was trying to take a shot at the inefficiency. Like I say, it's amazing. I'm just looking at the Department of Energy, 16,000 employees. Armando, what are they doing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Besides collecting a paycheck.
But it's general only this example exists. I mean, are there more of this situation?
It seems like everything the government touches, it just it goes on, and there's no accountability. And in private industry, private industry is usually out to get a return on investment, and they're looking for efficiency and accountability, and they've got ways to target people's progress. Are they meeting their projected goals and projections? But the government, like you say, it's just motion, and nothing happens. And so I don't know. I mean, I keep thinking about 16,000 employees, and 45 years after they're formed, they haven't made a dent into what they were trying to do when they started.
The main problem could be the commitment to obtain results or something related to that.
I don't think they run like a private industry does. Private industry has, targets and goals, and there's accountability. I got to assume there's no accountability in government. So it's just frustrating. And I'm paying my taxes. I'm supporting this effort.
And they are using your money to do.
That's right. They're using my money to do this. So,
Yeah, interesting. Let's move a little bit to refineries and worldwide refineries. You mentioned in your article that there are around 700 worldwide refineries.
in the
And
entire world, there's 700. Now, the United States is one of the wealthy countries. So, in the United States, just a few years ago, we had 135, and in the last few years, I think about half a dozen have shut down. So we're down to like 129. But of the 700, they're expecting about 20% of them to be shutting down in the future. Now, 20% of 700 is 140 refineries. Now, that's 140 manufacturers of all the oil derivatives that makes the products in our materialistic society, 140 manufacturers of the fuels to fuel all the transportation of the jets and the ships and the space programs, et cetera, et cetera. And so, there's going to be shortages. And, the people that recognize this, obviously, the wealthy countries want to get rid of fossil fuels, which is, primarily crude oil. But when you take a look at, China and Russia, they know differently. I think they're laughing at the United States because there's right now, I think Asia is planning on building 88 new refineries.
my God.
And so, I mean, they're basically encouraging America to, shut down your refineries we'll provide all the products, from here. And, China already controls the exotic minerals and metals, lithium and cobalt, to build EV batteries. And if we keep going the way we're going, yeah, they'll basically control all the products in our materialistic society.
That's right. Did you see that in North Sea they are re-entering in the exploration phase?
Uh, there's efforts to do exploration, and then the government, steps in and stops it. I mean, even like, President Biden, there's a lot of permitting that's been issued up in Alaska, and then he comes back, and he cancels it. So,
Yeah,
like I say, he's basically
federal
trying to,
lands. Yeah.
yeah, he's trying to get rid of crude oil, and I don't know why. Can he explain to the you get rid of crude oil. The only good thing about getting rid of crude oil is, Biden's flying around in a 400-ton airplane, 100% made with the products made with crude oil. It's powered by aviation fuel, which happens to be manufactured from crude oil. And he's screaming in the microphone, we're going to get rid of crude oil. Well, give me a break. I mean, the only good thing about getting rid of crude oil is you would ground Air Force One.
And the nice cars, he has some nice cars that sometimes he used and show us.
When I see Secret Service, around the president, see all these bulletproof, limos, and there's 10 of them, and geez, what are all these people doing? But yeah, I
Are
mean,
not electric.
and they were made. Well, forget. I mean, electric vehicles 100% made with oil. Without oil, you have no components to make the cars.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's, powered by a battery or powered by a gas engine or powered by, French fry grease. It's basically the components that come from oil. And unless you can replace oil, you're going to stop all transportation. So that's what it really gets down to, Armando, is how do you replace oil?
Yeah, yeah. I saw an article or a notice that United States the last month obtained the biggest amount of production, oil production. Did you see something related to that?
No, I see the the opposite. Like I say, they're trying to cut down production. And I mean, being here in California, like I say, all the oil production in California, they keep targeting each one to shut it down, shut it down. And I want to say the bad news is they've been successful. The worst news is we're now importing more than we ever have. And we're the fourth largest economy in the world, and we're 60% dependent on foreign sources of oil. And what does Governor Newsom want to do? He wants to cut oil production so we increase our dependency on foreign countries. I mean, it makes no logic. I mean, how do you support the materialistic society we have?
Ronald, to close our meeting today,
Yes.
imagine that you are appointed as a Secretary of State of Energy, replacing Brunhole. What are the three main actions you take very fast?
Well, probably for one, I would get rid of the 16,000 employees of the DOE and hire Walmart to run it. No, it's. I think if anything, we got to focus on educating the teachers, the students. Greta Thunberg. She's walking around with these signs. How dare you? But and she's flying around in all the materialistic things that come out of oil. I mean, she, flies on ships or she sails on a boat because the boat's not using crude oil, but the boat is made with crude oil products, and so it's like I say, it's crazy. And but I think the main thing is educating the students, the teachers, the parents, the students. And if they're educated, and it's got to be in layman's terms. I mean, there's a lot of technical formulas and graphs and charts, but that's too hard to understand. But when you get down to basics, we are a materialistic society. And how do you maintain that? I mean, we're different than we were 200 years ago. We populated from 1 to 8 billion in 200 years because of the materialistic society we have. And, all the materials you have in your house, in the hospital, in your in shopping market, the food products, the air conditioning, all that equipment is made from crude oil.
Would you open exploration in all country?
We have to focus on efficiencies and conservation. I mean, the world's been around for billions of years. I don't think oil can be around that long. I mean, we're using it, and I'm not sure how we're replacing it, but we just have to be wise. I mean, just to make something and throw it away, that's not in the best interest of humanity. So we want to basically use it efficiently and and conserve as much as we can. I know today's gas, the dryers, the washers, they're much more efficient than they used to be. Vehicles are much more efficient than they used to be. Planes are more efficient than they used to be. So we got to focus on efficiency and get the most out of it we can, because I don't see anything changing our materialistic demands. I just see our ability to increase the longevity, for hundreds of more years.
Yeah.
Till the next meteor hits the earth and destroys us.
Yeah. Good point. Efficiency is a very good point. Yeah, really is. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Was a
Armando. Okay, you have a great day and have a great upcoming weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay,
Bye bye.
take care. Bye-bye.